Saturday, September 3rd, 2005, having a visit with Walter and Nyla Denholm and talking about their family history. So you were talking about the Mitchells were probably the farthest back that you had ancestry. Can you start telling me a little bit about them and about the time period that was?
Well, the Mitchells came here, and it must have been maybe during the Civil War, because they settled along the railroad over there, was railroad land, and they bought that, and then later they put in the Smith School was settled there, and
the Mitchells donated the ground to the school.
The Mitchells donated the ground for the school back in. I believe the earliest they have on this for the school was they give a deed to it in 1868 because they lost the deed. The original deed was lost.
So the Mitchells then would have been what relation to you, Mr. Denholm?
Had been my great-great-grandparents.
Great-great-grandparents.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. So you were telling me that they had donated some ground for a school.
Yes, they settled along the railroad over there, and they give the ground for the Smith School, where I went 8 years to school. And it's...
William Denholm married Nancy Mitchell in 1859.
Yeah, that's one of their sons.
So
their son.
that's right at.
That's the start of the Denholm.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And they were married in this area then?
No, I don't know where they were married, because he was. It was right at the end of the Civil War, evidently, I guess before the Civil War they were married.
Right.
Because my grandpa was born in 1860, I think.
Okay, so...
he was a carpenter. He worked as a carpenter back east, and he came west. And when he got married, they came here and settled in Tonganoxie.
Okay.
Where my uncle lives up the road here.
Okay.
They settled there. Of course, the Mitchells were already here, is the reason they came.
Okay. And then that would have been your great-grandparents then?
Yes.
Okay. And their names again?
It's William
Denholm, and he came. Her name was Nancy.
Okay. Mitchell.
And she was a Nancy Mitchell.
Okay. And then your grandfather's name?
It's George Denholm, and he had one sister, Nancy, and she married a Morgan, of course.
Jenny, wasn't it?
Jenny Moore, yeah.
Now, your grandfather, George, when was he born? You said 1860?
60.
Okay. On July the 12th, 1860.
Okay, and did he have siblings then?
Yes, my dad and my Uncle Bill, and my father was Walter Denholm also. And my dad was born in 1899, and his brother was born in
1896.
96, okay.
On February 22nd, he has the same birthday as Jeff has.
Okay.
And he was born in this old house that was up here.
Okay.
I was born there also. And the old family house that's been in the family since, well, my folks bought it about 1880, I think, and it was built in 78 by the name of Gress. I don't know, other than that, his name was Gress.
Okay.
And he owned the place at that time. This is my great-great-grandfather here, William Mitchell. And this is my grandpa, George Denholm. And I don't know, I guess this is my dad here. My grandmother's here.
Hattie.
And Hattie Denholm, and I do not know the rest of them hardly.
Okay, now I understand you were born in this house.
I was born in this house. My dad was born in this house. And he had been born in 1899. Okay. I was born in 1926.
Fantastic. Now this house has been moved, is that right?
That's right. My son moved his house a mile down the road and redone it.
Okay. Looks like moving day.
Yes, this is the old house, and my son moved it down the road a mile, and it's 100 years old. And
looks like some more moving day.
yes, this is the same old house, and when they got it jacked up, and we're getting it ready to move.
Looks like that was big news when they moved that house.
Yes, it was. It made the front page of the Tonganoxie Mirror. It was. They were just moving it off of the foundation there. Want to move it out on the road.
It was moved. It looks like that was August of 2000. So the house would have been 112 years old by that time.
Mm-hmm. He was, and my job was to keep track of him so he didn't get fell down. Or he walked with two canes, and I had to keep track of him so he didn't get fall and get hurt.
Okay, so that would have been your grandfather George.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did George share with you any stories about when he was growing up in the Tonganoxie area, or
No, he didn't do a lot of that talking. He's not one that done a lot of that.
didn't share a lot? Okay.
My dad told a lot of stuff.
Okay. Your dad Walter, what did he tell you about his dad George and the life that he lived here then?
Whatever you remember oldest.
Hmm?
Did they farm with horses?
Oh yeah, they farmed the horses.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember how many acres they had that they started with?
Well, it was 400 acres here,
Okay.
and there's about 160 of it was tillable ground.
Okay.
The rest of it was pasture. And my granddad worked in town a lot. He was a banker, and he until I had the banker's holiday and they closed it down. You know.
Right.
He more or less that was the end of his work as a career as banker.
Okay. Do you remember the name of the bank that he worked
Yeah,
at?
Farmers Merchant.
Farmers Merchant Bank. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you were talking about the 1929 when the bank's closed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bank.
This is a picture of your grandfather in the bank, and which
Yes.
one is he?
He's a man with a hat on in the front there. He wore it.
Now, did they lose money then?
Yes, he lost. Well, what money he had, he lost all of it.
Okay.
And most all of my folks took quite a. They had to mortgage their ground too, probably because the place was in my grandpa's name at them days, and therefore he was. They lost quite a bit of money also.
Okay.
And
So there were some hard times then.
yes,
Yeah.
most everybody lost everything they had mostly.
So they mortgaged the farm to stay on the farm.
Yes.
And then they had the drought.
Oh yeah.
Did they tell you stories about that?
Yeah, I can remember a lot of this drought the years. You know, as back in we could find a well went dry. You know, we went to the back of the place here, and this crawdad was pushing mud up in the bottom of the creek. You know, and we took a post auger and dug down there and hit a stream of water, and it just come right on out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And we dammed the creek up and put a pump up on the bank and pumped the water into a tank and let so many cattle come in at a time. We had probably 100 head of cattle at that time. And we leave about 20, 25 of them through the gate, and they'd come back and drink a tank of water. We'd had a little one-cylinder engine down there, and we'd just pump that water up into that tank and let the next ones come in, and until we got them all watered. And that was about it. That was an everyday occasion. That was one of my jobs on the little old Shetland pony I had to help herd them cows.
Okay, and this was the dairy cows then?
Yes.
Okay. Holsteins?
Yes.
Okay. And how many were you milking at the time?
Well, he was probably milking 30, 35 cows, and him and not over about 30, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were milking by hand at that
Yeah,
time?
well, he had an old Empire milk machine.
Okay.
When I was a kid, yeah. And that's what he milked with.
Okay.
And they, of course, they hauled the milk then down to the old milk plant we had in Tongi down here. Old Franklin Ice Cream Company. And then they used to get on thrashing runs. I used to be water boy on a lot of thrashing runs around here. $1 a day, you know.
Yeah.
Be there thrash. I was what they call the water monkey.
Uh-huh.
And I haul water over here in the Stranger Bottoms is Judge Brady in Kansas City had a farm over here, and it was rather large. They hired me to be a water monkey over there one year, and I was there for 7 days. I worked for 7 days and haul water up in them bottoms.
Okay.
I made $7. Boy, I was rich.
Now the threshing crews, would they come up with the steam engines then, or what?
No, it was mostly gasoline.
Gasoline at that time.
Yeah, they were thing of the past a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. But they were crews that would work their way through and go on north then, or did
No,
they?
most of these were crews that stayed around here. As local men that would hire on, like with the over there in the bottoms. They would hire on over there. I think if I remember right, the pitcher got $1.45 a day, and a teaming wagon and a man in teaming wagon he got a $2.45, and that was the wages. And I got $1 a day, and I thought that was quite a bit, you know,
Yeah.
and it was. But it's a mile and a half up to the bottoms where the fields were,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to fill them jugs and go up there and really go make a couple rounds up there, and then they have to go back and get the jugs again full of water. That was quite a. You kept it going.
Yeah. Now, how many days would the threshing crew usually be here?
Well, that crash would take about a week over there, but the thrashing run they call around here was all the neighbors, you know, would all help, and we'd be about 3 weeks usually.
Okay.
Time we made it around.
Okay.
And then whose ever farm they were on, that's where they ate, right?
Yeah.
The wife prepared the meals and...
They were the ones that really done a lot of work, because in them days there wasn't no electricity or nothing, you know. And maybe they had a coal oil burner for a cook stove, you know, them old stoves, and a woman would have to go in there, the heat of the house and everything else, and you know, everybody come in, they have to feed 15 men probably, and cook for the meals for them, and cook them a noon meal every day.
Mm-hmm.
Bake the bread and the pies.
Yeah. It was, they had a big job. The farm woman had a lot of work to do there.
That's right. That's
I
right.
don't know how they did this. Of course, people don't realize there was no fans or nothing. Just farm life was pretty rough at them days.
So I understand George, as a banker, had a soft heart.
Yes, he was. Yes, he had a very soft heart. He, as I understand, in the bank, he hardly ever turned anybody down for a loan, because they always needed, when they needed money, they needed it. And he, one reason he lost a lot of money in the bank, because people was hard up in them days, and he had loaned the money to them, and a lot of them couldn't pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost he's a very kind-hearted man.
Okay. Now, after the bank closed, then, did your grandfather come back to the farm, or what did he do?
Yeah, he was probably pretty near, probably in late 60s.
Okay.
So he more or less had just stayed on the farm and helped.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother and him moved on at this place here, where there's a tenant house here at that time, and they moved into it and stayed here.
Okay.
And that's where he lived his life out, was here.
Okay. And what year did your grandfather George pass away then?
In 42, I think.
Okay. And
43.
And his wife, did she precede him, or did she pass away?
Yeah, she died a year or two before him. Okay. Well, longer than that. 30. She died in the 30s.
Okay.
He died in 1943.
1943. Okay. Mm-hmm. And his wife, was that Jenny?
No, her name was Hattie.
Hattie, that's
Hattie,
right. That's right. Okay.
And Jenny was the daughter.
Jenny was the daughter.
No,
No.
That was just Jenny was her sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law.
Yeah, because Jenny was a sister to George.
Okay.
Jenny Morgan, she was. She was a sister to my granddad.
Okay.
And she went to Linwood, California in her later years.
Okay.
I don't know, later years or when.
Over there, Jeff, on that stack of pictures, there's some embroidery work that Jenny did and made for her brother. If you want to.
So this embroidery is something that.
Yes, that was my great aunt. She made that for my grandpa in Denholm, and when back in the early days.
About what year do you think that was made?
Oh, it'd be maybe 70.
Okay. The name of the Mitchells that actually donated the ground for the schoolhouse were
Andrew and Jane Mitchell.
Andrew and Jane Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. So George attended which church in town?
The Congregational.
Okay.
And they belonged to the Congregational church far back as I remember, and I suppose right after it came to Tongi, it was about the first church, I think, in town.
Okay.
They tell that it took about 3 buildings to get the church going, because they'd start to build a church and they'd tear it down during the night.
Because they didn't want the church
They didn't want
built.
a church in town. It was a railroad town. Tonganoxie was a railroad town. It was a pretty rough town in the early days.
It had a lot of saloons.
Yeah, my father went to school there, and they lived down towards town in them days. And he said he had to go by 7 saloons to get to school.
Mm.
So there was a lot of saloons in Tongi in them days.
Some rough folks. Then.
You bet. And
okay, now we were talking earlier about your dad was born in 1899.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they lived a little closer to town. And did he walk to school?
yes.
Okay. And we just learned that he had to walk past 7 saloons. Now, how about World War I? Were any of your family in World War I?
No, my dad was too young for World War I, and my Uncle Bill, he was in the service, but I never got overseas, I don't believe.
Okay. Okay. And what was your mom's name again?
Her name was Hawes. Anna Hawes was my mother's name.
Okay, and she was born about the same time as your dad?
She was there, yes, same year.
Okay.
And her dad was, he's a superintendent of the hog farm up at Lansing up here during, it changed every time politics changed. They changed jobs, you know. He was a Republican, and he'd get a job up there, and the politics had changed. Well, he lost his job right there, you know. Mm-hmm. And then he'd get back in he'd go back then. But he was a superintendent of a hog farm up there.
At the prison.
Days. At the prison.
Okay.
Grandma, pardon me.
Grandma Denholm, Hawes, she was just a housewife.
Okay.
She used to say when there'd be a prison break, the the kids would all get real scared, and Grandpa Hawes would say not to be afraid because they weren't going to stay that close. They were going to leave the area, But she said they always were afraid when there would be a prison break.
Now, your dad, did he go to college? Did he just finish high school?
No, my dad was he got out of high school in 1918, and he got the flu. They had the flu in them days, and he was supposed to go to college that fall, and he got the flu, and so he never did go to college, and he went and stayed on the farm.
Okay.
And farming the rest of his life there.
And now, were you all milking at
yeah,
that
he
time?
milked cows then.
Okay.
Him and Ed Klinkenberg, he helped. He went to school in them days and stayed with my grandparents, and him and my dad started farming this farm here back in them days, and they milked cows, and Ed and him were farming for a while together.
Now, what row crops were corn at the time?
Corn,
and wheat?
yes, and corn and wheat, and of course oats and the hay crops, of course.
Mm-hmm. And they farmed with horses then?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what kind of horses?
And most of them are Percheron horses.
Percheron horses,
yeah.
Okay. Does the family still have any of that horse?
Very few, very little of it anymore. It's pretty well gone.
Okay.
I don't recall right now of any of the.
Rodney has a saddle.
Yeah, he's got a. It's pretty well done. It's been quite a while.
Okay. Now, in the farm times, was there ever any fires or anything that where you lost a building or a house?
Yes, when I was, I guess about 14 years old, the lightning hit our old milk barn up there and burned it. And it was a rather large building, and it would be a hay barn, and the milk barn was on the side of it. And burned it one night. Lightning hit it because it's. I remember when that lightning hit that barn, it bounced me about 2 foot off the bed, I think, because it just bang, and I shouldn't have done that.
So you were in the house.
Yeah, I was in bed.
And then you looked out the window and
my dad hollered and said, "Hey, the barn's on fire," and I run. But there was nothing we could do because it just all was a fire all at once. It had a hay track down the middle on the roof, and it burnt that thing. The roof was all afire at once.
Now, probably no animals in the barn though at the time.
No, it wasn't an animal.
So after that, did you guys milk in another building or just?
Yes, we built a kind of a shed deal out there, and we milked in it. That's where we milked in it for quite a few years there. And then later when I got up to more of age, we built a milk barn up there, which is still there, but we don't milk anymore, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you remember anything else as a teenager that sticks out in your mind as something very memorable?
You used to raise sheep.
Yeah, I got into FFA in high school,
mm-hmm.
and through the FFA, you could buy Ramillet ewes from out west that ship them in here. We bought 30 ewes, and I raised sheep all during my high school years and afterwards a while. And I always had a hog or two around. The Schultz brothers over here, neighbors, they give me a gilt one time, and I kept her and raised hogs, and with the sheep and the hogs and everything. Of course, my dad was milk cows. I didn't have none of them, but he kept milk cows, of course.
Right. Now, with the sheep, did you go ahead and shear them and everything?
Yes, I was in high school, and I bought a pair of electric shears. We got electricity here. and I bought a pair of electric shears and sheared sheep myself.
Okay.
It was quite a job. Some of them, I was in FFA, and it was during World War II, and it was nobody left to shear sheep. So a bunch of us boys in the FFA and in the high school got together, and we'd go out and shear sheep in the daytime. During school, they let us out to go shear sheep. And we'd go out. Some of them would get a big old ram. We'd have to tie him up to shear him. We couldn't go him down because he was too big of an animal to throw on the ground.
Uh-huh.
We sheared him. We sheared sheep all every spring.
Do you remember what you got paid?
Not much. I don't remember. No, I don't. I don't remember what they did charge.
I don't think we ever talked about
No.
that.
Anyway, we sheared the sheep and give the money to the FFA. We was supposed to be in a school.
Uh-huh.
And we gave that to them and made what little money we made went into the treasury of the FFA.
Okay. Now on the farm, did you mention that you had some pigs and that? Did your family also keep other animals on the farm?
Yeah, my dad was in the hog business with me too, and in later years he was in the sheep business too with us.
Okay. Do you guys have a chicken house?
Oh yeah, always had chickens. That was the mainstay of the farm, you know. They raised chickens, and my mother used to take them down. You'd go to the grocery store and take your eggs in, you know, and trade them in down there at the Dale Rawlings. They had a feed store in Tongue. You'd buy eggs, always buy eggs, and we'd always take the eggs to town. And of course, that'd buy you a lot of groceries.
Yeah. So you'd barter with the eggs.
Yeah, you bet.
That sounds great. Now, did you ever have any foxes try and get in the chicken house? You ever lose any chickens to animals?
The coyotes used to get us. We used to have quite a few coyotes, not so much with a fox. We've always had coyotes for some reason or other.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have very few anymore, but them days we did have a lot of coyotes.
Mm-hmm. Now, you'd mentioned earlier that you put up hay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at that time, that would have been just
Loose hay.
Loose hay.
Yeah.
So you guys would go out and put it on the hay rack and.
Yeah, we had an old hay loader, and you put it on the back. And later year, my dad got an old tractor then, and we'd hook the wagon on it and hay loader on the back, and load the wagon up with hay and take it in, and old hay barn in there, and raise it up with the track and pull it in, and we'd put our hay into the hay barn usually. And then later years, we got a hay stacker, and my dad used to push the hay up in the pile, and I'd stack it. We done that for a few years too. That was a lot of work, boy. It's hot. Woo! Come in at night and you feel like your legs is numb.
Mm-hmm.
Tromping hay all day.
Yeah, that's something.
Oh, you probably had to pack it, didn't you, so you could get more in there?
Oh yeah, well, you stack it. You have to make a kind of ricking around so water drain everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dad was really a storyteller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Walter George is a storyteller. And the story about the poison ivy, he had a hired man here, and they'd been trimming out the hedgerows. You know, we used hedgerows for fences in them days, and of course, when you trim them out, you'd always get poison ivy and stuff. And this fellow got poison ivy all over his hip and everything. And my dad said they told him that use gunpowder, smear that on there, and they kill the poison ivy. So one day at noon, he said, "Well, we'll try it after dinner." So I went out, and the old boy pulled his pants down, and Dad did that, and he rubbed it and slapped it on his leg, you know, and he said, "Denholm, you son of a bitch." He took around the barn. He'd go around and come by, and he'd holler, "Denholm, you son of a bitch." But he said it killed the poison ivy.
It hurt, though, too, doing it. Yeah.
Do you want that word in there?
I don't know. It don't make any difference. I think everybody heard that word before.
Yeah, I think they have, and they'll understand why he used it too, because that had to hurt.
You bet.
And now your grandfather, I guess, fought in the
my
It's William.
great grand William Denholm. He was in the Civil War. He had 2 kids, and he volunteered into the army. In them days,
30.
he was 30 years old, and I never could figure out why this man done this. But he had 2 kids, and he volunteered into the Civil War, and he was in Sherman's March to the Sea. The old man said they'd have patrols that go out at night, but said they'd never come back. A lot of them would go to, they'd either be killed or captured. And he said it was pretty rough in them days, I guess.
Yeah, he enlisted in April of 1862, and then he was a corporal in 1864. And then, at his own request, he left the service at a reduced rank. I guess to go
to get
to
out.
His family. Mm-hmm.
And they came back, and they were in Iowa before, and the Mitchells had already came to this part of the country, I guess, and so he came here and homesteaded the ground out here. Bought it from the railroad.
Okay.
And that's how they got into the state of Kansas.
Okay.
Been here ever since.
And so that's where we're estimating about around the Civil War time is when the Denholm name got here.
Yeah, right after he got out of the army.
Okay.
And they built cabins, and they said that was so dangerous at night that...
Oh, that was the Mitchells over there.
That was the Mitchells.
The Mitchells over there lived along a railroad over there. Of course, there's a main road going west out of Leavenworth. They said when it got dark in the evening, they pulled the shutters on their cabin, locked the doors, and if there's a knock at the door, you didn't answer it, because they'd shoot you right through the door, because that's, them days, there's a lot of raiders come over the line into Kansas from Missouri. Slavery, raiders, and they'd shoot you right through the door if you answered your door. So it must have been pretty rough times.
Sounds like it was very rough times. Did your family repeat any of the Quantrill's raid stories?
Well, they were in Tonganoxie. I don't think it really got much over here, but no, not very much about them.
Okay.
Just a neighbor did.
Yeah. Schultz's over here are neighbors. They came here during the Civil War, and they settled this. And they had an uncle that lived in Lawrence. He said he went in there, and during this Quantrill's raid, he was in a business over there, and they raided down through there and burned everything. And he hid, and when he got a chance, he got a team of horses, and he come to Tonganoxie to get away from him.
Wow. And he hid under a stack of pallets of animal pelts.
Mm.
Yeah, he was a hide. He bought hides, and he piled a bunch of hides and got underneath them when the raid was on.
Okay. Now I understand that after you got out of high school, then you went into the service at that time.
Yes, I got out of high school, and me and a boy I went to school with, we volunteered into the merchant service. I was both merchant marine.
I don't think I caught your birthday yet. When was that?
I was born on November the 3rd in 1926.
Okay. And Nyla, what was your birthday?
October 7th of 1940.
Okay. Now, you were telling us about going in the Merchant Marines, and what year was that?
In 1945. I got out of high school in the spring of 44, and I helped my dad this summer, and come in the fall, and they were pretty hard, the draft was right on me anyway, and a neighbor boy I went to school with, we went into the merchant service instead of going into the Army. And they shipped me to California, Catalina Island out there. I took my basic training. It was 4 weeks. 4 weeks, and I went aboard a Liberty ship. Put me as a crew member on a Liberty ship in 4 weeks. I had a pretty good time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then I stayed there I made 4 trips. I don't know. The old Liberty ship, she just got back from Calcutta. She'd been hauling horses and mules for the Burma Road now, believe it or not. My goodness, and they had stalls for 186 head of horses and mules on this old Liberty ship. And I went to South America on it, and we hauled cement. We led down there and back, and then I got on the Army transport. I signed aboard it and went on a Farrell and went to China and Korea. Got to Korea, and they talk about that storm down here in New Orleans. I hit the typhoon at Okinawa in '45. They said it was the storm of the century. We took us 3 days to lay in that storm. It was such a big storm, you know. And we had a Army transport. We had a tanker off to our starboard, and he would go when he'd go over a big wave, it'd go submerge it halfway to that, back to the mid-house on it. And then when it'd rise again, you couldn't see it for 5 minutes. The water was just blowing everywhere. So, and I went to China and Korea and back home on it.
He's got that all mapped out on a globe, if you would like to see that.
And then then I went aboard. I signed on. I went on a tanker, the Quebec, they called it, and we went. I went most everywhere in the Pacific there was. We were everywhere. So about 7 months on it, we went to Okinawa first, and China, Japan, India, Persian Gulf, and all the way in through the Suez and over to Sicily. I got scalded there a little bit on tanker. We rolled, and I was working in the galley on there, and the old cook put a big kettle of soup on the grill. I was bent over washing the flood down. We had a drain back there was getting plugged up, and I got down to where take a broom back here and sweep it off, you know, and I was bent over, and that thing hit me in the middle of the back. But man, I got scalded, and that lasted for quite about 6 weeks before I could do much after it. Then I made another trip after that even.
You were at Hiroshima?
Yeah, I got in Hiroshima right after the bomb dropped. And that was quite an occasion too, I'll tell you. Probably got a lot of radiation there and didn't know it, but it was a pretty, that bomb was unmerciful. I don't know how many thousands was killed there. There were several thousand people. And it burnt right up on the side of the mountain up halfway, and then just like it burned that hard, and everything was dead that high, and then everything above that is just green. And it was, buildings were nothing. They just burned them down and nothing. There was nothing left there. Only thing you could see, we had a little foundation. They didn't have basements or nothing. And there was a little foundation where we was a house. The foundation was there, you know, and that's all. They never had plumbing or anything, so there was no pipes or nothing.
So you left the Merchant Marines in what year?
In the fall of '46, I came back home. I got scalded on that one there, and I couldn't take the heat very well, so I came back home, and I helped my dad here on the farm, and we milked a bunch of cows, of course, and that was our income. Mostly it was farming. It was the cows, you know, and we milked cows and for several years.
Milk Producers Association document?
Yes, we always milked cows here in this place, and always had a dairy. And this is a milk association they had here for people had milk cows. They formed the Milk Association.
It looks like that.
Mr. Knox here was a man down here, Tonganoxie, that used to milk, and he right in the edge of town, where the Historical Society is located now.
That's his barn.
That's his barn, yes.
And this document was signed, it looks like February 21st,
1934. And my wife here, she came to Tonganoxie and was down here working in a restaurant down here in Tongi at the time. And I met, my folks went on a trip back east to New York. Now, my sister and her husband took my folks back there on a trip. I was eating my 3 meals a day, or 2 meals a day in there at that restaurant, you know, and I met her. And we got married in a year or so.
Okay.
And
do you remember the name of that restaurant, Nyla?
Opal's Cafe.
Opal's Cafe.
Yep.
Okay.
It's down there where I guess there's a light bulb deal in there now, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right there on. On
that's where it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right across from the mayor office.
So you had this farmhand come in to
Yep.
eat his meals because you had nobody home to make him a supper and a lunch and a breakfast, and that's when you met, huh?
That's when we met.
Okay, and that would have been about what year?
In '64.
64.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they had a really big. I think they had 3 peach trees, but they had a really big crop of peaches. He said he took everything out of the refrigerator and he just filled it full of peaches.
My folks is gone, you know, and we just took out everything, and I just stacked it full of peaches. And my folks came home and opened the door, and nothing but peaches. My mother cooked peaches for Lord knows how long.
Okay.
And
That's all right. She liked to cook.
So you started a family when?
Rodney was born in '67.
Mm-hmm.
And
September the 13th.
Yep.
And he weighed 6 pounds and 7 ounces, and he was born in '67.
And then we had Robbie, our second son. He was in September the 19th of '69.
Mm-hmm. He weighed 9 pounds.
And he weighed 9 pounds, yeah. And we went on, and then Jimmy, our son that lives up south here, he was born in, 72?
Yeah,
January. In the spring of 70, yeah. And
January the 10th.
January 10th. And then Jeff, that was just here, we were born in 59, I guess.
No.
76,
76.
Okay.
February 22nd, 76.
Okay.
And he weighed 7 pounds, 6 ounces. It was kind of funny because their birth weights just kind of went along with the years.
That's something. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I suppose you have some grandkids now.
Yeah, we got 6 grandchildren. Robbie, our second son, he's got 3 boys. One of them's 8.
Well, he was born in 95, or 97. December the 9th of 97, Matthew was. And Jacob was born December the 3rd. He's 3 years younger, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's born 3 years later. And then Zachary, he was born September the 29th of last year, which had been 204.
Mm-hmm.
And then our oldest son, Rodney, he has 2 girls. Elizabeth, she was born in Liberty, and she was born May the 25th of 1995. And Rebecca was born in Salina, April the 11th of 2002. Right.
Okay.
And then we got...
And then we... Catherine Ann, and she was born February the 14th of this year.